Hey guys, welcome to the I Hope They Hear This podcast. And my voice is a little bit raspy today. Hopefully I'm not getting sick, but maybe I am. I don't know. So bear with me on that. And we have a really special guest today. Actually, a really unique guest. We have Mr. Hyun Kim.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. And I say that you're a unique guest because our relationship. So actually all of my other guests I've had some sort of history with, at least a little bit.
Right.
But you're the first person I actually have on the podcast that I met kind of through the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We reached out. We had that lunch that one time.
Yeah.
Do you remember when that was?
Man, that was like 2 months ago.
Yeah, it was several months ago.
Yeah.
We met up at Chipotle just to kind of chat.
It was so awkward.
But it was fun.
It was fun. It was fun. Yeah.
And
I enjoyed it.
I credit you as being the reason why I do more research on the podcast.
Really?
Because remember, your one, not one, but one of your feedbacks was, oh yeah, it's great, but it would be cool if there was some more background info on some of the things that you were saying. Because I used to say this a lot. I would say something and I would say, someone fact check me. Like someone look it up and make sure I'm saying the right thing. But you were like, yeah, if there was actual like articles or something you could mention.
Yeah.
Because of that, I think moving forward from that, whenever I do kind of the solo podcasts where I'm talking about a subject matter, I try to quote as much as I can from like where I got the information, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you.
No problem.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty important because there's just so much information out there now. And I just feel like social media has allowed people to just say whatever they want.
Yeah.
And then we taking all that in, I don't know what's truth and what's fake anymore. So
and it's crazy because even news media, like professional established news sites, they'll throw stuff out there, and when they're wrong, like they'll do retractions and they'll say like, oh, we were wrong.
Yeah.
But that doesn't get as many clicks as the original story, so people just end up believing the first story anyways.
Exactly. I
think there's a new movie coming out about the Atlanta bomber in like 1996 or something like that. I forget the name. Richard Jewell? I forget.
I have no idea.
But it's a movie about a guy who actually he pretty much got framed. Not framed, but he got blamed for a bombing that happened in Atlanta.
Wow.
And it was because a news outlet said this was the guy who did it. But it wasn't really substantiated, and people like all over the country were like, oh, that guy is a terrorist. But it's a story of how like they had to fight to clear his name, and so
that's pretty nuts.
So thank you for helping this podcast at least be not a part of the problem.
No problem.
So actually, before we were talking, one new thing that I learned about you, because we were talking about headphones, is you're deaf in 1 year?
Yes, I'm like 95% deaf on my right ear.
On your So how does that kind of affect your day to day?
I think now that I'm a little bit older, it doesn't affect me as much. But the times where I'm like really it's really sensitive is like when I'm in a large or a loud place. So when people try to whisper in my ear, I have to kind of do a 180 turn, and then they get all confused, and I have to explain the whole story of what happened. But besides that, it doesn't affect me too much day to day. Usually when people try to speak softly, I have to kind of ask them to repeat themselves. Actually, I've had multiple times people got upset at me because they're like, why don't you listen to what I'm saying? And I'm like, I'm trying, I just can't hear what you're saying.
Right.
And so then then later they feel bad. But besides that, it's not too much.
So when someone whispers into your right ear, can you hear that someone is whispering to you? Or
I hear just like noise. It's like muffled noise.
Oh, wow.
But if you go low enough, because people have tried to be like, hey, can you hear me? And like they'll go lower and lower. At one point, I won't be able to hear anything.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I actually have a coworker who's a principal. He's like higher up in my company, but he is like that too. But he's completely deaf in 1 ear.
Oh wow.
So there have been times where we're in a meeting and I'll turn to him and I'll like say something into his ear, and he's just typing away.
Yeah.
and
It
I'm like,
looks
oh,
like you're being ignored or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just we really don't know what you're saying. We can't hear you. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I even tried getting like a hearing aid,
Uh-huh.
but those things cost a lot of money.
Uh,
Yeah, it was like 10,000, 12,000.
wow.
And that was only because I was in high school. But it gets more expensive because your hearing gets worse.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you want like the cool ones where it doesn't bulge out, they cost like over like 20,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Even with insurance, it's still expensive.
So like the $10,000 ones, do they have like antennas sticking out and like
It
the
just
whole,
literally
like,
wraps around your ear, so it looks like a headphone.
Oh wow.
You know, and then I've had times because I used to have it in middle school, and then people would be like, "Oh, are you listening to music or something?" And I've had teachers who actually like question what that was because they'd never seen a hearing aid before,
Right.
and so, you know, it gets a little bit uncomfortable. It does make you kind of stand out a little bit, because people like stare at it and they try to like play with it, but it's like,
Wow.
don't play with this. It's a hearing aid.
Yeah.
But because of that, I did take off the hearing aid. It did affect a little bit of my school, so I had to go sit closer to the front of the class, and things like that.
When did you find that out?
I think it was like third grade when, you know, like in elementary school, they do like a yearly like eye exam, hearing exam. Yeah. So like I sat there and I was doing the hearing exam, and then the proctor or the person was like, "Hey, you're like, are you playing around?" Because I wouldn't raise my hand for the right side.
Right.
And then they did it again, and they're like, "Hey, I think you should go to a real hospital."
Wow.
So when we went to CHOA, the Children's Healthcare Atlanta,
Yeah.
and we did an official like hearing test, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, you're like 95% hearing gone."
Wow.
Yeah. And so then they led to the program of like hearing aid. You know, we weren't financially like in a place to afford one, so they was really helpful in providing like the financial aid and even like paying up to like 18, 19.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really, really beneficial.
Yeah. And so you don't know how it happened then, huh?
No, they have no idea. They think it could be from birth. I just didn't know what it was. Or they think, you know, like there were incidents where I got hurt. You know, I got hit in the baseball once in the nose.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was like kindergarten, and then it literally shifted my bone. And
Wow.
then they were thinking like it's possibly connected because like your nose and your ears are connected. Or, you know, I was sick a lot when I was young, and so they, you know, it's very highly possible that you could get sick, and it could affect like hearing loss and stuff like that.
Because like inner ear infection and all that kind of stuff. Wow.
So
Wow.
they really don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is.
You know, I guess the technology was different back then, but when my daughter was born, when she was like 3 days old, they did hearing tests.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They like, I don't know how they measure it, but they put something in her ear, and I don't even know if babies react to it or not, but like, it's, so I wonder if they had those tests back in the day, like
maybe. Yeah. I mean, I was also born in Korea, so, you know, I don't know if tech then or there and here was the same even back then.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So, that was just an interesting thing that, you know, so your Pastor Joe,
Yes,
at Han Vision, he actually had a conversation with him the other day. He was saying, "Oh, you know, keep doing your podcast thing because you're bringing people together in Atlanta." And I kind of laughed, like, "Oh, that's a funny joke."
Yeah.
But he was like, "No, seriously, like people who like know people on your podcast but don't really know them super well, like they're finding out things about them that they've never really known, and they're like getting closer because of that." So when you told me about the deafness, I just wasn't aware how many people around you knew that. Right. And I'm hoping that like your friends who don't know will hear this and they'll be like, "I never knew this."
Well, they should know because I've told multiple times.
Okay. Yeah. Well, at least now, like when if someone hears this podcast and they see you, they won't try to whisper in your right ear.
Or they might just do it to joke
Just
around.
test,
I have a lot of friends who do that too.
Yeah. So I just and I was telling you this before the podcast. This podcast, now that I'm coming to kind of so I had a 1-year commitment to myself to do this podcast on a weekly, and just to see kind of what I can learn from it and how I want to take it, like in which direction I want to take it in the second year and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I've come to a place where I feel like I want to just hear people's stories.
Okay.
Like catalog people's stories.
Okay.
You know? And I know in the beginning I did this whole, like, just to kind of catch people's attention. I hope people of this like hear this, you know? And there was a point where it actually shifted to, I just hope you hear this conversation with this person. And that's kind of when like I started thinking about it,
Right.
going more of the conversational story kind of format. And so, yeah, that's what I'm hoping that we can do today, just to kind of capture your story.
Okay.
Yeah. Not to try to like say or like educate people on anything, but just to like, because it's your personal story, right? It's going to be
Right.
unique. So yeah, this is really off the cuff. Obviously, if you are looking at the video, he does not have a script in front of him.
Yeah.
I never gave him any questions or anything like that. But I just can you just kind of explain to us, because you said you were born in Korea.
Yeah.
Your journey of how you came to be here in front of us.
Okay. Yeah. I don't want to like go too into detail, but yeah. So I was born in Korea. I came to Georgia when I was 5, but we lived in Smyrna, which was
What? When were you born?
I was born in 1993.
Okay.
So I'm 26. now.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So we moved to Smyrna early, and that area was kind of, now it's a lot better, but back then it was kind of ghetto. Like there'd be nights when I hear gunshots.
Wow.
Yeah. And like robbery and all that stuff was very common in the area. And you know, the population was like 95% like African American, and like the rest was like Hispanic, or like, and then there would be like me and like maybe 2-3 other Asians.
Wow.
Yeah, that'd be it. So grew up there, but then around 5th grade we moved to Marietta, which is, you know, predominantly white. And my parents did that because the whole Korean parent mentality is to focus on our education. So I moved over there, and then from there on, you know, stayed there. I'm still there. My family's still there. And yeah, graduated high school, went to UGA for undergrad, and worked for a little bit. And now I'm in school again for my master's.
What field did you work in when you were working?
So I worked in insurance. So at UGA, it's like a fairly new program. It's only like 10-15 years.
Oh, wow.
But they have a degree in insurance. It's risk management insurance. UGA. Apparently, they're like number 1 or number 2 in the nation, and they're really proud of it. So I graduated with that, and then I immediately worked at an insurance office for 3 years. And then there was just like some things that didn't work out with the company, and you know, I also felt like where I was staying still in Athens, and all my friends moved back to Atlanta or, you know, out of state, and so I was starting to feel a little bit of like, you know, depression and like loneliness, and I started comparing my life to people. So then I, you know, like one thing led to another, and I felt like God was calling me to come back to school for, you know, back to Atlanta.
So actually, I wanted to ask you about that, because the one thing we talked about during our lunch when we met up was, you said that there are things about insurance that typical people might not know.
Right.
Things that happen that you should be aware of when you're dealing with your insurance company, right?
Yes.
One thing you told me shocked me. So can you just kind of explain some of those things, that some of the insider tricks that you learned in insurance?
Of course. So I know pretty much every company, they act different, but they're all the same because it's the same industry. And so one trick that I learned is whenever you have questions about your insurance policy or just anything about insurance in general, you want to always call your agent, because if you ever call the 1-800 number or corporate, they will put a flag on your name. Yeah. And why they do that is there has to be a reason why you called. Right?
Gosh,
why did you ask a specific question like, hey, is this covered? Or if this situation happened, you know, what does my insurance pay or cover for it? Right? And for them, like when too many people ask those kind of questions, it puts a red flag for the company.
Wow.
Right? But if you call your agent, because, you know, they're supposed to be licensed and, you know, they know what they're doing, they should be able to answer those questions for you without going too deep into your account, you know?
So what happens if you have your insurance policy directly from the company and you don't have an agent?
You want to ask for an agent to be assigned. Yes. And why that's important is because, you know, like when you go to any 1-800 service number or you call any service number, you have to deal with random people every time. And a lot of times they really don't know what they're doing.
Wow.
And so you would want to tell them, hey, can you assign me to an agent near my house, like near this area? That way, you know, I want to have a stronger relationship with them.
Right.
And you don't have to be best friends with them, but you just know there's actually a person that you can always talk to every time, who knows your story, who knows your situation, instead of always getting a random person.
Wow.
Who doesn't really care.
Yeah. So when you get red flagged for asking those questions, can that impact the rate that you get? Like
It can.
Wow.
Yeah. I've had a lot of clients who during the snowstorm and even just like the whole Hurricane Irma,
Yeah.
right, in Georgia, a lot of people called in about roof claims. They're like, hey, we had a hurricane. My roof looks a little bit damaged, but like, is it covered or is it not covered? And maybe it was a specific situation, everybody was calling in. So the insurance companies were just like, oh shoot, like we have to expect a lot of claims coming in, and so they had to start preparing. And usually, oftentimes when people ask, it's not a big deal. Maybe there might be a few damages, but then those damages, if they don't fix it right away, it builds on, and then it becomes like maybe $100 to $200 claim turns into like $1,000 or the whole roof.
Right.
And that's when insurance companies start to, put a flag on it. They might even raise your rates. I know it's crazy. I have to explain this to the clients all the time. That's why I tell them always call me, not the company.
Wow.
Just because they're looking at numbers and they don't know your story. They just know you called in for a problem or a question. And so they don't know what to do but just put a tally on your name.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
There is.
Yeah.
So people always say like, oh, if I'm not the one who caused the accident, my insurance rate doesn't go up. That's not true either.
Oh.
Because insurance works with statistics. Is another tally. Yes, it wasn't your fault, but let's say you get into an accident 3 times in the year. You're a high risk like driver, right? For some reason, people just like hitting you, or you just get involved in accidents, right? Even though it's not your fault, they have to deal with the legal issue. They have to deal with repairing your car. Like, you're just another expense to them. And it's the sad truth, but they will have to eventually raise up your rates too.
So I know, especially amongst Korean Americans, when there's like a small fender bender amongst friends, they don't report it because neither party wants any sort of impact to their insurance.
Right.
Is that like the good thing to do in terms of what can happen to your insurance rates?
So there's 2 answers to that.
Okay.
As a friend, I would say, don't file it. It's just not worth it unless it's like over 1,000 or something. But as an agent, I would say you should, because again, the whole issue with like minor damages. Let's say you get into a fender bender with a friend, but then literally like another month down, someone hits you, right? But that fender was already, or that car was already damaged from the previous accident from your friend. Now that person who hit you will have to pay almost like more damages. So it's like they were already pre-damages, but then now like they can't determine what was really caused by the person who actually hit you.
Right.
And people don't care, but imagine if that was you. You're the one that hit the person.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be like, hey, I wasn't the one who made that much damage.
Yeah.
It was already a dent there, right? But you can't
prove it
because the damage has already been done.
Oh, I see.
So again, it works both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Wow. Dang. So if I'm in an accident by myself, like I hit like a pole or something, well, then I guess that's my fault. So that would impact my rate. But so what about if it's like a deer? Like a deer hits my car.
So there's 2 coverages. There's where you hit someone, or when you hit an object, an inanimate object. If you hit an inanimate object, it doesn't affect your rates as often. That a little bit varies based on company, unless you hit them a lot. Like if you just randomly hit deers a lot or hit poles, then they'll start to question again. But usually when you hit a person, that's when they, for sure raise your rates.
I see. Yeah. Wow. Any other tricks or anything that you can think of?
Yes. So last thing I think is really important. A lot of people try to just trust their friends or even their families with their car. Not even just like, oh, you could borrow it, but it's more like, I'm letting you drive it because I'm going to take a nap. Or here, why don't you just, drive it for the road trip? The way insurance works is it goes to the car first and then the driver. So yes, you're letting your friend drive your car, but if your friend gets into accident, it's actually coming out of your insurance first. And that's just how the order works. Yeah, insurance follows the vehicle and then the driver. So you're putting a lot of risk on yourself.
Right.
Yes, you could trust your friend, but that is the risk that you have to put.
Right.
A lot of people don't think about that.
Right. Because it's coming out of your pocket, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I've had a lot of, not a lot, but there were a couple incidents where I read issues where they let their girlfriend or boyfriend drive and then they broke up. Yeah, so that's when it gets crazy.
Yeah.
He calls me or she calls me and say, hey, we broke up. It's not me. It's the driver. It doesn't matter. It's your car.
Oh my gosh.
You see how the situation gets really complicated?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Dang,
So I always
crazy.
try to advise people, don't let people drive your car. Unless you really, you're worth taking the risk for, or, unless you, could pay out of the money out of your own pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's kind of it.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, I'm gonna clip this part out and put it on YouTube as a standalone insurance tips video. And you mentioned that you went back to school, so you're currently attending school.
Yes.
What are you studying?
So I'm at Georgia State University. I'm studying accounting.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's actually a crazy story because when I went to UGA, I actually started with accounting, and then I took a course, and the first test I flunked, so I dropped it. And then, I moved over to insurance because I thought it was pretty interesting. And while I was working at the insurance office, my boss was actually also a licensed CPA accountant. So I was exposed to both the accounting and the insurance. And I think I did have a passion for accounting, or at least I had more interest for accounting than insurance. And so constantly being exposed to that world, I was like, hey, man, I wanted to do that. And I literally just gave up so fast. And one of the life mottos I live off of is not living a life of regret. And so working there for 3 years, it just kept being in the back of my mind. And so I decided, a lot of things were happening. I had issues with the company, and then, a lot of things just kind of led me back to go home and then, go to school for master's.
Oh, wow. How far along are you in the program?
So this program, it's meant more for older people, a lot of people with families or who are working. So it's only a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I just finished my first semester, and so the expected graduation is next year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's really flexible. Again, it's to work with people who have families or
jobs.
Yeah, jobs. So it's night classes.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
So are you enjoying it?
I love it.
Yeah.
Like I love it so much because everyone's always asking me like how's school. I can understand. Well, I think for me, like there's a difference between undergrad and grad, and I think, like for me, like this is what I tell people when I go to class, even though I have no idea what's going on, I'm like super happy, and then they're like, "That's nuts," right? And then for me, it's because I can't. How I process is, wow, I don't know anything what's going on in class, but I can't wait until I actually understand it. When I go to study or something because I want to help people. And that's also another reason why I actually went back for accounting. Kind of like the backstory. My family, we came here and a lot of Asian American stories. We weren't financially stable. We actually struggled a lot financially, and I was really exposed to like the whole issue early. My parents didn't want to do it, but I kind of just had to be there, translating a lot of things. So in high school, I actually handled a lot of their finances, taking care of their bills, like even talking to insurance agents or whatever, like banks. And so like with all this issue, like I was like, man, there's a lot of families, Asian American families who have issues like this, who our parents doesn't speak English, and we have no idea what we're doing, growing up.
Right.
And so I was like, man, I wish there was a person or people out there who can guide, our parents or people who come in without, lack of English, because there's so much resources out there, even with like the health world. That's why insurance is important too. But the tax world, the accounting world, the financial world, a lot of people struggle in that, and so I want to be there to help them in that place.
Right.
So that's kind of why.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So then do you think excuse me, do you think you're going to be working with, once you graduate, do you kind of envision yourself working mostly with Asian American families, or
I think when I went into school, that's kind of like the approach I had. But more and more I'm learning it's not just Asian Americans. People don't really know the financial world, or even just like they're not real averse in handling money, or even, you know, like everyone always talks about, these are the things they don't teach in school. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter what race you're in,
Right.
you know, if we all go to school, we're not going to get taught, you know. And so I'm actually understanding more and more, it's not just Asian Americans, but it's like almost everyone is just not being educated in how to, you know, like buy a house, or what mortgages look like, or even getting a car, you know, just simple things like that. And so I just wanted to be, I think I'm starting to become more open, but I think my primary focus is still the Asian Americans, just because, you know,
that's where you're coming from,
and my
right?
family.
You know, there are those memes that kind of make fun of it, like, I don't know how to do my taxes, but I know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Like,
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I know people always joke about it, but
Yeah.
it's a serious issue when it actually matters. You know, when you start to have a family or take your first job, they ask you all these crazy things like 401ks or health plans. They never taught you that in school,
right?
You know, but it actually impacts your life, you know, at least, and then your future. And so I just want to be there to say, hey, you know, I'm here. You know, these are the services I provide. I just want to help you, you know. And I think very specifically, I want to focus heavily on debt management. Yeah, you know, because my family struggled a lot. And I know there's a lot of people in America, you know, statistics definitely show, I think it's like 85% of people have credit card debts that they haven't paid off. That's a serious issue, you know. And you know, kind of talking about passion, I know your previous guest, John Song, he talked about, you know, budgeting. You know, one of my mottos that I also live off of is, what I want to do is I want to help people do better at what they're good at. Right. So, but you can't do that if money's an issue.
Right.
You can't pursue passion. You can't pursue your dreams because money. Right. But money should never be an excuse. Right. We live in a country where we can get money somehow in the right way. And so, there's ways to pursue your dreams and passions, or there's ways to get out of debt. And so I want to kind of focus on that. And
one of the things that John actually said is, you can forego that bubble tea with your friends one night. You know, like that kind of hit me, because there's so much that if you just look at your like credit card or debit card or transaction history, you can cut out so much expenses. Like I think there's a lot of things that is kind of our daily lives to spend money on frivolous things in America. So the budgeting thing and like debt management, I think that's very needed.
I took a personal finance course in college. One of the assignments was literally for a month, maybe it was like 2 weeks, write down everything you spent on and then categorize it, you know, like simple, like food, entertainment, gas, and then you get to add up. And it's crazy to see how much money you spent on some things that you're like, oh, I didn't know I spent this much, right? And it really adds up. You know, people will say, oh, yeah, I'm keeping my eye on the credit card, but a lot of people don't really remember what they spent last week.
Right.
Like on food or whatever. You know? And so that just literally stacks up.
You know, honestly, like I'll use my credit card or something. I'll forget I did that, and it doesn't show up on my like transactions for a while. And then when it pops up, I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh
especially if you spend over the weekend. It adds up all on Monday, and then you're like, oh, I didn't know I spent over $200 on, you know, whatever. You know,
you think you're doing well, like you're healthy in your budget, but you forget this huge chunk. And I think one thing that definitely, I don't know if this is true for other people too, but me and my wife, we found that we spend most of our money on food. Like going out and just like going to a restaurant, it adds up so fast.
It does. I think food is one of the things that people spend a lot of money. It does add up a lot faster because it's not too big where it doesn't seem like a big purchase, but it's those small, you know, frequent purchases that literally add up to more than just one big purchase. You know,
I wonder if it has anything to do with, because there's this Korean saying, 먹을 건 아끼지 말라.
Oh, I see.
Like don't be stingy when it comes to food. It's basically, it's like a rough translation. But I think that came from an era where people were like, Korea was such an impoverished country. People were like starving themselves to try to like hobble together living and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of where it got birthed from.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's impacted us somehow. Like, and
Yeah.
like, so, cause I'm really guilty of this. I spend money at restaurants much easier than I do at a store. Like,
Wow.
I'll go to Target and I'll look at things and really think about, do I really need this?
Yeah.
But at a restaurant, oh, guacamole, is that extra? Sure, throw it in. Like, I don't need, like, there's not even
Wow.
a second thought.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
crazy.
Yeah. So it might be just me, but
No, I think that's pretty common. I mean, sometimes I do that too. Like, extra guacamole.
Yeah.
It tastes good.
Yeah.
And you just think, oh, it's only $1, right?
Yeah.
But if you do that every time, those dollars add up
Yeah.
and things like that.
Another crazy thing is when an app on the app store is $1, I really think about, do I absolutely need this?
Wow.
Probably not. And I save money there, but when it's in a different context, like food, it's like $1 nothing.
That's
like,
crazy.
Yeah, bubble tea, $5, that's nothing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah, the budgeting, I think, something that I need to do better as well. My wife does pretty well, but I'm pretty terrible at it.
Yeah. And I think kind of like what John Song was saying, like you have to just give up a couple of things.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to give up everything. Like the bubble tea, give up the bubble tea maybe because then you could save up for a computer or you could save up for a new mic or whatever your passion is,
Yeah.
And in the long run, like you will keep that mic or that laptop, versus like that bubble tea you had once that you forgot.
Yeah.
You know?
And you can be productive with things that you buy, like equipment that can, support your passions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And another thing that we were talking about before the podcast was the topic of passions, right? Because you kind of alluded to the fact that you really like helping people.
Yeah.
But one big kind of unifying theme, at least of late on this podcast, has been people's passions and like what can we do or what can you do to equip yourself to chase those passions, right? And so like, you were kind of telling me about how you kind of had a journey trying to figure out what your passion was and all that, right?
So because I was listening to your podcast a lot of
I appreciate that, by
yeah
the way.
no, your podcast is awesome. A lot of your recent guests has been talking about their passions, and it did focus a lot on like entertainment industry. For me, like I enjoy music. I enjoy art, graphic design, all that stuff. I enjoy it, but I never thought I had the passion like everybody here does. And so as I was listening to your podcast more and more, I started to ask myself, like, do I have a passion? Because I didn't have those passions, right?
Yeah.
And so it almost kind of spiraled down to, oh my gosh, like, what am I living my life for, And I think a lot of people have that issue, especially when they start to compare their lives to other people, who seem they have a goal or a passion.
Right.
But I think for me, I was able to talk to a lot of pastors, mentors, and friends who trust me, and I think we've kind of narrowed it down to, I think you just enjoy or you have a passion to help people. A lot of the things I try to do, the intention is to help people. Like when I think short-term or long-term goals is always like, in what way is this going to benefit people? And so one of the things I did talk with Andy.
Oh, yeah.
One of the guests,
Andy Eun.
Andy Eun, great guy. He helped me a lot. One of the last things we talked about was kind of like the future. What does that look like? And I think it kind of aligned with my passion. And I always had this heart to help elderly. And the story is kind of, I had my grandma was in Korea, and I visited her once with my family, and it was really in a very like dirty, like cheap, like a senior citizen home. It was like her and like 17 other people in one room.
Wow.
It was like super dirty. And I was like talking to my mom about this later, and she was like, it's just something that we can only afford. And so that really hurt me because I saw my mom cry. For her, she was here in America trying to survive while she felt so I guess like sorry that she wasn't able to provide for my grandma. And so and because of that, like I've started to volunteer. That was in high school. I volunteered a little bit in high school with some clubs, and even in college I went to a lot of senior citizens like centers and stuff, and I talked to a lot of them, and it's actually really sad. A lot of their stories is my family doesn't visit me. They kind of put me here, and maybe they visit me like Christmas holidays, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, wow, these people are people, and like they have a story. They're still here, and like I feel like our generation, or at least this generation, or whatever this movement is, we're always looking at the future. Is always what is the next thing, the next model, the next brand, the next whatever. We almost tend to forget there's people who are from the past, and there's stories like that.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I want to tell them is, hey, there are still people here who care about you guys.
Yeah.
And so, my end goal is, I think, elderly.
Yeah.
Like, I even thought about building an elderly senior citizen center.
Wow.
Just because eventually it's gonna be our parents.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
And if no one's thinking about it, then who's gonna be there to help them?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. My wife is actually very much like that too. She she grew up with her grandmother. But her grandmother's back in Korea now. And she's the type of person where like she was driving down Buford Highway once, and there was an old lady walking down the road. She was like, I gotta stop. So like she like stopped and like like brought her in her car and like was like, oh, where are you going? And she was like, I think she was going to the MARTA station. So she offered to drive her there. So so there, I think it's good that there are people like you guys out there, like looking out for the elderly. Yeah. I think setting up a community center for like elderly people, that's not a bad idea at all.
Yeah. And I know like there's already like senior citizen places.
Yeah.
Like, I have a big dream, dream big. It's literally almost to the point where like if I could literally fund everything, I'll even welcome people for free. Because like if my parents are struggling financially, or we're struggling financially, who's gonna be able to save up money for retirement or even the senior care? And it takes a lot of money.
I know that the government, they do subsidize a lot of stuff. Yeah. So
I even thought about that too. I thought if I could work with the government, if I could work with big companies, I mean, it could be a branding, like way to support philanthropy or whatever. It's okay. I mean, all I need is help. Yeah. And I think for me, it's even if it's not me, the goal, or at least the statement needs to be out there. Like, we need to help these people, and if I could get as much people, or if we can get as much people involved with this, then it'll be awesome. I mean, I also think like the government, why do they focus so much on the elderly? It's because they're the ones voting. We spend so much on like Medicare, Medicaid, all that stuff.
I think it would be really awesome for someone as deeply rooted in the Korean American church as you to start something like this, because I think because of your relationships. The one part of your story that broke my heart is when the elderly were saying, my family doesn't really visit me anymore. But if you have someone like you who sets up this elderly community center or senior home or something, you have a pool of like youth group students that you can pull from, like talk to youth group pastors and say, hey, like these kind of community hours, like they can come visit with them and stuff. Because I remember when I was in high school, I actually wanted to do something like that. It was very difficult for me to find or just know someone who knew of where to go. For sure. So I didn't even really know where to start with going about doing that. But if there's like, hey, I can just go to my youth pastor and he can connect me with someone for a place to go to meet or visit with these people.
Definitely. I think it's just one of those things that a lot of people don't talk about, because there's a lot of things we need to care for, like the homeless, the sick, just a lot of things, education. But I feel like this is just another thing that we also need to, keep mind of.
For sure. I know in the beginning you were saying how after listening to the podcast, you kind of had this, oh no, I don't have a passion. Like, what do I do? I hope I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm hoping that people listening don't get that kind of anxiety, because if I'm being honest, I don't even really like, after my conversation with Connor, that was the one where we entitled like people looking for passion hear this. I don't really even know like what my passion is. Like I'm still trying to figure it out, but I think the fact that I am aware of that helps me in trying to figure it out, trying to identify it. So I think that's the benefit there. Like, I think there are plenty of people out there who don't know what their passion is. So for anybody out there listening, if you are in the same boat that Hyun was in.
Mm.
Yeah, you don't. There's no need to worry. There's no need for anxiety or anything like that. It's just be aware of it and keep after it. Try to figure it out. You
Yeah.
know, like just talk to people about it, like Hyun did.
Yeah.
And get after it. And I think that should be like your like dream project of setting up like a elderly senior care center or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I look forward to watching you like pursue that
Yes.
stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is in the back of my mind.
Uh-huh.
Even like the whole accounting thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to build network and all that world
Right,
too. And
yeah.
so like, you need money.
Mm.
So again, counting like I said, everything that I'm doing, I think it again is the intention of helping people.
Mm.
And yeah, that big dream of the elderly care is always there.
Mm.
I feel like I'm just not ready for it right now. But
Right, yeah,
taking
yeah.
the small measure steps
Yeah.
to take
Yeah.
to take that. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And you mentioned Andy Eun, who
Yes.
was he was actually a 2-time guest on this podcast.
Okay.
And he is, and actually trivia, my episode with him about my anxiety is currently the most listened to episode of this podcast.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But he has his own podcast now, the Nabi Design podcast. Shouts out to Andy. If you don't know that podcast, go check it out for sure. You were actually a guest on that for one of the episodes,
yes.
and you kind of talked about your experience being coached by him,
Yes.
right? Can you just I don't know, you can divulge as much as you want, as little as you want, but just kind of give us how was that experience?
Sure. Yeah. I would say, if you want the full detail, it is in the podcast.
Yeah.
But actually,
go listen. Nabi Design. It's Nabi Design.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, that podcast with the anxiety, it actually started for me. I guess this podcast is crazy. Your podcast really have challenged me in so many ways.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So with the anxiety, I know you first started with Andy, and then you even had Selena come in, and so that kind of started even for me, like this idea of like, oh, do I have anxiety too, or like what are my anxieties? And after that podcast, I actually reached out to him.
Oh wow.
Yeah, literally, I emailed him and I was like, hey, like, can we meet up? And apparently he said a lot of people actually reached out to him literally after your podcast or something. So he had to literally make a website because there's just so many people emailing him and contacting him.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And so we set a time. We met up for the first time, and then I kind of told him my story, like what's going on. And for him, he comes off as a person who does life coaching, but he also have like a pastoralship, and so for me it was really interesting because I've never met anyone who had that. Like I've had people who are pastors, and I've talked to people who are like counselors and like life coach, but no one who is able to do both. And I was able to meet with Andy, and he was telling me like this is something that I do. I like to fuse the two, and help people with anxieties or with whatever they're going with their life. And so just kind of the background of why I approached him, and not just anxiety, but I actually had a relationship issue where I didn't, me and my girlfriend, we broke up, and that really affected my I guess identity, and I was like spiraling down this whole like rabbit hole of like depression and everything, kind of like a little bit of what Edward Captivated talked about. And so I had to reach out to someone, and I actually discovered my anxiety is because I have like the fear of like wanting to please people.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so that's my biggest anxiety. Like I just feel like I need to please people, which is a conflict of my passion because I want to help people.
Oh wow.
Right, and so it was a big issue for me. Like I was like, man, is this heart or this desire to help people? Is it still trying to fulfill my anxieties? Right, and that's something I'm wrestling with almost every day. Like everything that I do intentionally, is it really because I want to help them, or am I doing this because I want to seek, their praise, or if I need to have people around me?
Right.
And it's really hard for someone because it's so conflicting almost every day.
Yeah.
And so because of that, like he was able to kind of go through a process of understanding who I am, accepting who I am, and then seeing what I can do, like, through God's vision and his plan for me for the future.
Wow.
And so it was like 6 weeks that we did. And it was like it was like so good because I think it truly transformed me. And I've had multiple people tell me like, wow, Hyun, like you've literally changed within 6 weeks. Like people have literally told me that I'm like not the same anymore, and I would say it was really rough journey because I had to really dig deep. And like it was so funny. One of the first things Andy told me was, he's like, Hyun, every time we meet up, you're probably gonna cry a lot more than you're not. And it was actually true. Like it almost unraveled a lot of things that was hidden. Like even you had a little bit of taste of that. Like, but I've had the sessions where it goes so deep that all I could do is just start crying. It was a lot of wounds and like things that I thought was taken care of or that I didn't even know was there. That really affected, just everything about me.
Wow.
Yeah. And so through that, coaching, through that session with Andy, I was able to really accept myself and also accept the anxiety and the fear. And I wouldn't say like I've fully overcame it, like I'm still battling, but understanding where I stand has really helped me to change and look positively in life and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, it's crazy.
Yeah. Because one of the things that Selena said, and she still says it, she just says everyone should do therapy. And it's like life coaching because she feels like people all, like you need the tools to kind of understand the things that they're going through that they might not know. They might think it's just like an emotional thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like to hear what a huge impact it had on you, that's like the power of coaching right there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And I mean, I would agree with Selena. Like, I think everyone, if not coaching, at least talk to someone.
Right.
Like unravel some things. And it might get you somewhere. It might not, but I mean, oftentimes it does. And if anything, it will at least put some questions in your mind to really dig deeper.
Do you feel like your anxiety has gone down a lot? Or?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I feel more confident in doing a lot of things. Yeah, there will be times where, I still question like my true intentions.
Right.
Or actually, like my biggest fear is, I tell people, if I were to pass away, like who will be at my funeral?
Oh, wow.
But even things like that doesn't matter to me anymore. Like I've overcame that. That's not important. I feel like anxiety is just one of those things. It's like a big barrier that, outside forces or like the devil or the enemy or whatever you call it, it's just a huge hindrance for a lot of people to even pursue their passion or their dreams or even to wake up every morning and be happy, And so, yeah, it's hard. I would say you really need to like prepare your heart and prepare yourself for this because it's going to be pretty rough.
Right.
Yeah. Right. When you start that route.
Wow. So then ever since that, do you feel like the trajectory of, I mean, because you talk about how accounting is a way of like pursuing your passion of helping people, right? Do you feel like since the coaching, your trajectory in that has changed, or do you have like a different outlook, or?
A little bit. I think it actually honed in more specifically to cater towards the accounting. So for me, I was just thinking, again, debt management. Yeah. But even specifying on servicing people with businesses. Like you say you talk about how one day you want to get out of the 9 to 5. Yeah. And do a little bit of like freelancing or outside work on yourself. Right. Like, like have you talked to people on how to financially do that or even plan something like that or just random things like that, like start from there. Budgeting, planning for the future, planning for families, and then eventually like it all leads up to retirement and again elderly care because eventually we're all going to get old. Yeah. If you haven't saved up money, you don't want to put that burden on your child. Right. Yeah. And so I think through the coaching, it helped me to really focus on the skills that God has given me and understand how I can apply it to my life right now, as a student, but also what that looks like, 3 years from now, 5 years from now when I'm working, and then like 30, 40 years from now where I look back and say, have I done what I wanted to do, or is this what God has planned for me?
Right.
You know?
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
And I think again, it's like retirement planning is so important because one thing I'm hearing a lot is the traditional, because people used to plan for like 20 to 30 years of retirement because, you retire at like 60, you'll die at like 90.
Yeah.
But the average life expectancy is going up. So for us, I almost feel like when we retire, like we'll need to plan for like 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if we're not thinking about that now, yeah, it might come to bite us later
Yeah.
on. So, yeah, like, and people who don't even realize that they need to be worried about that, I think, yeah, those are the people that you're like trying to reach, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to like let them know, hey, like these are financial considerations that you
Yeah.
need to make. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not to say that it's like impossible or like you're already too late, but you can start as soon as possible, and it takes a lot of discipline. I truly think it just adds discipline to you personally. Like
Yeah.
you could apply it to other parts of your life. Like understanding, what it's like to sacrifice
Right.
for people or even things. It's just it's just a character I think that's good to have. Yeah, I think it's just really important. Yeah, actually, when you talked about the life expectancy,
Yeah.
crazy story. When I was working in the insurance time, I had an elderly client who told me he had to get back to the workforce, but he was 75 because his fundings were pretty much expunged. Like he spent all of his funding, but it wasn't that he was spending a lot. It was he calculated properly, but because of medicine and I mean great stuff about medicine is like we live longer, but because he's able to live longer, he wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah.
And he was telling me how like he literally was crying in the phone,
Oh my gosh.
telling me like he was trying to find a job and no one's hiring him and he's about to go broke.
Yeah.
And he still has to pay for medical bills, medicine, all that stuff. And so these are things that people, there's people who don't even plan for that, but there's people who plan just enough. But like you're saying, like 40, 50 years, that's really possible.
Yeah.
Medicine, technology has done such a great job in the last 20, 30 years where like, we're healthier, we live longer, and that's kind of scary, you know. Medicine's getting expensive too. So.
Yeah. No, there's so many crazy stories of how like insulin.
Oh
is,
man.
Yeah, like thousands of dollars.
That's another story. Yeah.
Yeah.
This person, she was literally like living off the government funding, programs and stuff, and one like something pen. I didn't really know exactly, but
the EpiPen.
EpiPen. No, that's not EpiPen. It was like I don't know. It was something for her, like blood pressure or something.
Okay.
But it was like $5,000
Oh my
with medical coverage. So before I think it was like 7,000 or 8,000, and like I literally tried everything that I physically can, and everyone has just told me like this is the lowest price that you could get anywhere, and it's just one of the saddest things to break.
Yeah.
The news to people. I tell them I try my best, and $5,000 isn't something you could just pick up.
Yeah.
And she needs it. She needs it to survive. And she was telling me how like she's literally about to go bankrupt because she has to spend all of her money on this one thing that's gonna keep her alive for a little bit because she needs it often.
Yeah.
And so it's just crazy. Like like that's real life.
Yeah. One of the Democratic candidates, Andrew Yang, one statistic he always mentions is something I forget the. Do you know what I'm talking about? I think it's like 80% of people, if they had a surprise $500 bill, wouldn't be able to pay for it. It's something really staggering and mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, budgeting is so important because of that. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. So, what's next for you? You're studying right now. Do you have any idea like where you want to go afterwards, or like what you want to start in? Is it just I just want to get a job in accounting, or do you have other goals?
Right. I think in terms of my career trajectory, I'm like right now I'm interning at a small firm.
Okay.
So I'm getting exposed to the personal, one-on-one, small taxes and stuff. But I do have a desire to work at a big firm, and not because I want the money or anything, but it's because I want connections.
Yeah.
Again, the goal is to expand so that in the future, when I share well, as I continue to share my dream, I want more people to be involved, and I can only do that when I get my hands on more people. You know, so for me, you know, I do kind of want to focus on being exposed to the world, and that's, you know, I have to go to a big company. So, you know, I kind of planned on doing that for a little bit, and when I feel ready to kind of branch out of that, you know, start my own small accounting firm or whatever, or immediately if I can jump onto that project of senior citizen care, I'll do that.
Yeah.
You know, and so in terms of career wise, that's something that you know, I want to do, and that's kind of what I'm planning on. But you know, I'm always open to what God leads me, and so how I always pray to Him is, you know, if it's Your will, then multiply, like let it grow.
Yeah.
But if it isn't, then just like close the door, so that I know that that's not what You want for me.
Right.
And so for me, I think it's just been straight shot, like everything that has just been aligning. And so yeah, that's kind of how I see myself now. Other things, like, again, through your podcast, it's crazy. I've been just challenging myself to look beyond just like being comfortable. And so I actually signed up for half a marathon.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
So there's some people from our church who are gonna do it in April.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, it's
That's
literally
awesome.
you and like Pijo talking about it. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, just challenging myself, like, you know, living life more comfortably, more outside of just comfort. So like, you know, there's something like that. Like, I know even Jonathan came in and talked about how he just randomly started a bookstore.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have this, you know, I'm pretty ambitious too. So I have this thing where I have like this app idea, and I've talked to some people, but nobody wants to do it unless I pay them. So I've actually started looking into coding.
Wow.
Yeah. So I haven't really got into it too deep, but I'm looking at like courses, because there's free courses online. You know, people do things on YouTube now, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, like just building up projects here and there, not spreading myself too far out, but I don't know. I don't want to just, you know, live my life working.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Even though I do believe it's my passion, I want to be exposed to other things too.
Yeah.
And so.
I know. When I worked at my previous company, there was a course. Like, they used to have these online courses to like do really random topics, but one of it was how to be like more fulfilled or something like that. Or it was like a time management course. And one of the things they talked about was you need to have 3 goals at all times. You know, one should be a long-term goal, and like timeline should be like years.
Wow.
You should have a medium-term goal, and like the time like line should be like months, and you should have short-term goals, which should be, it could be hours, but it could be like days.
Right.
So it sounds like to me you have most of those. You have your long-term goal of eventually wanting to do something in the elderly care.
Yeah.
Your medium-term goal can be like your marathon and learning how to code.
Yeah.
And I mean, day-to-day goals, they're like really simple things. So
is.
it's like doing your laundry, or
Right.
Cleaning your room, making your bed, or like going and getting groceries or something like that. So
Exactly.
yeah, I'm sure you have those. So that's awesome that you kind of have like tiered level of things that you want to do and that you have an outlook toward.
Yeah.
Where's the half marathon going to be?
I think it's in Gainesville.
Gainesville. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Your pastor is just gonna make everyone super healthy.
I guess so. Yeah. I know, like, everyone jokes like he's like the buffest pastor in the, you know, that everyone's ever met.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, I think it's something that I never really thought about.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done like 1 or 2 5Ks, but I just want to, you know, challenge myself for the new year.
Yeah.
And just sign up for that.
That's awesome. I think, are you training yet?
Yeah, I am.
Yes.
I have been.
So
It's
I
so
think,
hard.
Yeah. Once you train yourself to get over the mental barrier, I think that will really open up a lot of things for you, because it has for me.
Wow.
Just the fact that I got past the mental barrier of being able to run for more than like 30 minutes. It's because it really is just a mental barrier. I think your body can take more than you think it can take.
Yeah.
So you can run for much longer. And so when things happen at work where it's a really long project that's not going well, I have that grit and that like perseverance that is, because it's kind of the same mental barrier. So I'm excited for you. For that.
I'm super excited too.
Yeah.
It's the first time. So.
Excited about your app as well.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. I don't really know how that's going.
No, no. I mean, at least you're trying things. You're doing
Yeah.
things. One thing that actually people at your church, I was talking to Blair.
Okay.
I self-published the book along like 2 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was like, "Wow, congratulations!"
Uh-huh.
And I said, "You know, self-publishing a book is not difficult. Like anyone can do it. Like
Oh, really?
you write something, the process to do it on Amazon is not hard. Like anyone can do it."
Wow.
But then the thing that she said that got me was she said, "Sure, but not everyone does it."
Wow.
So I was like, "Oh, you know what? You're right." So
That's good.
yeah. So like even if like even if it isn't hard, even if it doesn't get you anywhere,
Yeah.
like if you're trying new things, like
Yeah.
that has value to yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like it had value to me. Like so, yeah. It's all that to say, don't discount your app thing.
Right.
Because even if you end up not creating the app, like the fact that you went down that path and pursued it has value in and of itself, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of like to give more weight to what you're saying. For me, I think again tying in with all the anxiety issues and the coaching, one of the things I've really come to value is being happy. Like literally like my value doesn't come from people or things or like even passion. Like I know people sometimes focus too much on passion and then they lose themselves, or lose friends or whatever. And so for me, it's there's something that I do every day. I write 3 things I'm grateful for, and I actually try to write something different than the day before. Because there's so many things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And I think when things like like barriers, like the mental barrier, or even just like you start a project and then you don't finish it or whatever, good reasons, always coming back to that gratefulness or just being happy for who you are, like the way God made you.
Yeah.
I think that can always keep you going, right?
Yeah.
And I think so for me, I agree with you. Like the values and all this stuff, it's not the most important thing, which is it's great to have them.
Yeah.
But it's always good to make sure you understand that you're valuable in the eyes of God.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just over the hour mark. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't?
Actually, there is one thing.
Yeah.
It's like one of the first few things you talked about in your early podcast.
Okay.
It was The Office. So I'm actually a huge fan of The Office. I've watched it, like I kid you not, probably more than 50 times.
Yeah.
Like I've literally watched it. Like I actually would say like I've listened to it while I was driving, and I could picture it while I'm driving.
Yeah.
And I think one of the questions you have was, even with friends, you were like, why do you think we enjoy those characters? Even though, do you remember that? You were something like, even though we know it's like cruel humor or like they're so mean or whatever.
Oh yeah.
You're like, but why do you think we enjoy that kind of humor? I really thought a lot lot about that because I was like, why do we like love The Office or Friends or whatever those things,
Because they're not super nice people.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
They're actually really like jerks.
Yeah.
I don't know, this is my theory. I think 2 things. One, I think it's because it gives entertainment in our lives. I think a lot of times we kind of compare our lives to people and television or social media, and we see our lives kind of boring, and kind of imagining or seeing other people or even a TV show, it gives a little bit of I wouldn't say adrenaline, but I think it gives a little bit of like
it's like some sort of fulfillment.
Or just like thrill.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's the first one. The second one is I think it's the thing that closely relates to us a lot of times. Like there are times when now this world, I think we've been so sucked into social media and entertainment and like TV that's actually what we see in real life. And so sometimes we relate to that. And so I think that's my 2 theories.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Because I know they're like the worst people, but yet we enjoy their character. And
gosh, when I rewatched like Friends in particular, some of the things they do to each other, like Joey, he owes Chandler like thousands of dollars,
a lot of money.
He refuses to pay him back for the longest time. Like who would you like? Can you imagine one of your like closest friends like just casually ignoring your request for like repayment?
I think he literally lived off off of Chandler for like
Yeah.
many years,
Yeah.
many years.
Yeah.
But,
But he's one of the most lovable characters, though, which is funny.
that is crazy. I think people I think don't really see that unless maybe they apply to them or something.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, you actually gave us a lot to think about. I think so. If you want to connect with Hyun about any of the stuff he talked about, if caring for other people, helping others resonates with you, if even his long-term goal of a project of starting some sort of elderly care center resonates with you and you want to connect with him, you can find him on your own, or you can contact me. In fact, if you even want to, going back, if you even want to contact Andy about coaching, and you don't know how to reach out to him, feel free to use me as your messenger. You can contact me at IHTHT podcast@gmail.com, or comment or DM me on my Instagram at I hope they hear this. Sorry, that's I hope they hear this, or now on Twitter at IHTHT podcast. And so I don't know if people realize this, but usually this podcast is on like a 2-week delay. I tend to have like one for the upcoming week and the next week at all times. So that's why there's this 2-week delay. But we're on YouTube now. Our first episode that we had video for was Captivated. Find us on YouTube. Just type in I hope they hear this. And that's why I mentioned the part where I said I was going to clip it out and do it as a standalone clip on YouTube. It's because I've been just taking like little segments that are, because it's like an hour long podcast. I don't want people to sit there. So just capping out or clipping out little bits, digestible little segments of our conversations. And so those little videos are on YouTube as well. So go check it out. Whatever way you like to digest your conversations, I don't even know what to call it, your podcast, whatever it is, whatever way you like ingesting this thing. You have many options now. So thank you so much for coming again.
Thanks for having me.
This
is so awesome.
You know what, I really like this episode because it was almost like it's really nice because it's near the end of the year. This might be, if not the ultimate, it might be the penultimate episode of the year-long commitment that I have. But like we called back to a lot of old episodes, and just like how that it at least had value to one person. It's just I mean, I do it because I enjoy it. I do it because it's fun for me. But just to know that it provided at least a little bit of value to someone, it makes me feel good. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for having this.
No problem. Well, you're welcome back anytime. And
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll ask you to come back many times to give us updates on your life and how things are going.
That'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening or watching, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.